As the token Canadian, I like to take inspiration from my real-world beaver brethren who build entrances to their dams underwater. Inside Timberborn, you can do this with the taller housing and stairs to the doors, giving your beavers the wet fur buff every time they come or go and looking pretty neato. Please join me in thanking Mechanistry for sponsoring today's video. An easy excuse to play Timberborn's newest Update 7, Ziplines and Tubeways? Yes, please. Tunnels are neat. You can mark them to be built under your already existing paths, allowing you to expand the existing base naturally and ensuring no beavers are harmed in the process. Platforms are automatically built once the tunnel is blown open. Consider using tunnels to connect your farms rather than above-ground paths. Not only does it save space, but you can fill the tunnels with water to help irrigation and give your beavers the wet fur buff. The Iron Teeth faction can also build their tubeways through the tunnels for even faster zoomage. Though tunnels do cost 1 dynamite each, which makes sense, they can be effectively used to remove more than just the one terrain block you place them on. See the example on screen. If I wanted to remove this viaduct-looking structure with dynamite alone, I'd have to place the dynamite on each block of terrain at the top and work my way downward. Instead, tunnels can be built directly through this lower level so that the above terrain is dependent on them for support. Next, demolish the platforms. As you do so, you'll see, very satisfyingly, the terrain above disappears without you having to level it layer by layer. Yes, there are upgraded dynamites that remove blocks 2 and 3 below where you place them, but that's as far as they go. They require research to unlock. Doing so feels micromanagey and finicky, and let's be real, devastating the landscape like this all at once is pretty darn fun. When setting tunnels to be built, remember that they don't have a feature like dynamite where you choose to detonate them. Once they're ready, your beaver buddies blow them up automatically, so be ready for it. If you select a dynamite that has been placed, even if it's not constructed yet, you can scroll through the world layers to see how it extends underground and how far it will demolish. You can get to the layer view by clicking on this infinity sign at the top right of the screen, and dragging up or down will quickly move between layers. You can also hold Alt while scrolling your mouse wheel to move between layers. Windmills still work underground, perhaps not the most efficient use of space, but a fun fact that you can put to use should the need arise. You can irrigate tiles from below, but it's less effective than the until now standard same level irrigation. This doesn't render it completely useless, however, as you can decide to trade horizontal space for vertical space where you need or even just want to. Water underground evaporates just like water above ground does. This means you'll still need an effective water source for any farming you set up underground, or perhaps stack vertically like old school Minecraft mob farms. Remember those? Good times. But anyways, if space efficiency is your thing, Update 7 makes stackable farms like this even easier for crops and trees with the way terrain blocks can now overhang. Side note on this, at the time of recording, sunlight requirement is not a mechanic in Timberborn, another factor that allows these underground farms to be built. I've seen opinions both ways on this. Some want it to exist as a game mechanic and maybe introduce alternate lighting options for each faction, more natural options for the folktales like maybe light shafts or low light crops like mushrooms, and more mechanical options for Iron Teeth like sun lamps. I'm curious your thoughts. Let me know in the comments if you want to see lighting become a mechanic for the full release. But Toadie, you say, those top layers are up way too high. That's such a pain for our little beaver boys to get to. Not anymore. Of course, Update 7 is called Ziplines and Tubeways after the 2 versions of fun new travel our factions have been given. The Folktales ziplines are super fun and light enough on resources that I find I don't feel guilty dotting them around the map to experiment or get my beavers to places temporarily, then tear them back down once I'm ready for a more permanent system. Setting up a zipline network may take a little getting used to. Don't stress. A few key points to get you started. Beavers can only get on and off the zipline at these stations. The zipline pylon and beam serve the same function as each other, which you can think of as providing another support node to the network in order for the zipline to extend further. And they're just different shapes to provide you more options, tall or flat. As you place each zipline building, pay attention to any others that you already have placed and want to connect to. If you will be able to connect to them with your current placement, their wheel node dubers beavers will highlight blue and turn into a pointer shape. If you don't see that blue indicator, then the two buildings won't be able to form a valid zipline connection. Each of these wheels or nodes can only have one connection in and out of it. I wrap my head around this concept best by relating it to public transit networks. You can build continuous lines that allow your beavers to go around a big loop, or point-to-point style lines that allow your beavers to go back and forth. You cannot build a central spoke system, though, with multiple connections all to the one station. You would have to use multiple stations in that central location instead. Place down your various zipline buildings and tinker around with the add connection and remove connection buttons. You'll get the hang of it. See what I did there? Hang of it. Tubeways for the iron teeth operate a touch differently in that they connect automatically to each other and can have multiple connections, no problem. The solid tubeways even allowing for vertical connections. They do still require the tubeway stations for your beavers to enter and exit, though. The angle and direction of ziplines doesn't change the speed of those using them. The numbers are only relevant if the angle is too steep and preventing you from building them. The effective radius of buildings like gatherer stations and farms extends through ziplines and tubeways. You can see this when you click on the gatherer or lumberjack flag. Bots can use ziplines and tubeways. Both the zipline station and tubeway station can have their door pressed immediately against another building's door without need for a path between them. But no, your beavers will only be able to access that other building from the zipline or tubeway network. They can also be submerged in water without problem, though you want to be aware of if that water is susceptible to bad tides, because folktails traveling via ziplines are not protected from bad water during their trip. Iron teeth, however, traveling through tubeways are protected from surrounding bad water and its contamination, which is great. Though they are also protected from surrounding clean water, which means they won't receive the wet fur buff when traveling through them, even if the tubeway is underwater. Iron teeth can build and collect rubble from within the tubeways, making them a viable alternative to fussing with scaffolding. They can't demolish things from inside them, though. Folktails cannot build from their ziplines, but they can at least carry resources while using them. Zipline and tubeway stations don't require power, which was sort of a surprise to me. The tubeway station buildings do transmit power through them, while the tubeways themselves do not. I do enjoy the aesthetic, though, of running power shafts and tubeways in parallel, and find it helps keep planning a bit simpler. The difference between tubeways and solid tubeways is that solid tubeways can be built vertically, which also means they can connect to tubeway stations from below, where the regular tubeways cannot. You can tell if a tubeway station is connected to your main path network by its lights, the dome on top being the most noticeable. This is actually a mechanic for many buildings, as they'll turn their lights on when a beaver is stationed inside, but the tubeway station doesn't employ any beavers, so the lights turn on as soon as it's connected. The zipline stations are similar, but it seems like their lights also turn on if they're only connected to each other and not the main path. I wonder if this functionality is still a work in progress and might be touched up as updates come. Remember yeeting park goers into oblivion in Roller Coaster Tycoon, or deleting the pool ladder in The Sims? Well, I thought I found today's equivalent crime in Timberborn by deleting tubeways to create a loop when a beaver was inside. But sadly, it seems they just get stuck. Folktails just sort of plunk down to the ground if you delete the zipline stations too. Sorry to let you down. If anyone gets this to work, please do comment. Gang, adaptive power shafts are awesome. In the last Timberborn tips video, I talked about removing one part of a power shaft to attach a new line to it. Well, not anymore. Now we have fewer power shaft blocks and they are adaptive, meaning when you build one next to another, they automatically connect. Banger move, devs. Thank you. Solid power shaft blocks are basically universal, transferring power on all sides. The non-solid block can transfer power in all directions except vertically, but are significantly less expensive to build, especially considering early game resources. Contamination barriers now connect their textures when built side by side, which is a plus for aesthetics, of course, but these connective textures also demonstrate another change. You now cannot leave corner gaps when trying to contain contamination, or it will still leak out and affect the surrounding area. So with a design like this, contamination from bad water will seep through these edges into surrounding land. Once we replace the corner dirt blocks with barrier blocks, the contamination is contained. To bring it back to Minecraft again, remember it by not skimping on your nether portals. No one here skimps out on their nether portals, right? If you're already familiar with Timberborn and its maps, you'll see that the plains, lakes, terraces, craters, mountain range, and Beaverome maps were updated as part of Update 7. If you're hungry for a completely new experience though, be sure to check out the Steam Workshop to see all the maps folks have been making in preparation for this release. There are some incredibly creative and talented map makers out there. Personally, I think I'll be diving into Beaver's Ravine by Janleon. I'll link it in the description if you want to give it a go too. If you're watching this video the day it releases and want to see this map in action, I'll be streaming Timberborn tomorrow, Friday the 9th of May on Twitch at 12 noon Eastern Time at twitch.tv/ToadieZzz. Feel free to stop by. Speaking of Steam Workshop, I implore you to please be patient as mod authors update their mods. Just a friendly reminder, they make their mods out of a passion for the game and a desire to share their personal improvements to it with the community. Hollering at them in their Steam comments to update will do nothing to foster that community passion, yeah? Do you enjoy Googling things? I enjoy Googling things. And I'll admit, I have a habit of plunking Reddit at the end of my Google search, but this can bring up outdated discussions, and we all know how reliable our best AI slop pal Gemini is at parsing stuff like that, right? Anyways, if you come across information about natural overhangs being removed in this update, know that they originally were, with the intention of dirt overhangs replacing their function. But they were subsequently added back as Mechanistry listened to the community, who mourned especially the visual loss of the natural overhang. Did I add this tip just to demonstrate how rad the devs are for not doubling down when the community criticized a decision rather passionately, some more polite than others? Maybe a little, but I do think it's worth noting as Timberborn moves forward with its development in early access. Mechanistry is producing something rather special with this game, not slacking in working on its features and actively listening to community engagement. So if you'd like to be part of that, join the discussions in their Discord, Steam pages, Reddit, or timberbornfeatureupvote.com. Just, respectfully and stuff. Another note for your Googles, don't get stuck on the wrong wiki. The fandom wiki is unfortunately still shown pretty high in search results, but wiki.gg is the correct wiki to use. It's the one that is actually updated and reliable, and bonus, it isn't fandom. A general tip for wiki usage across games is to take a boo at the bottom of the page to find when it was last updated. Especially with a game like Timberborn that's still in active development with plenty of things changing, seeing recent updates across the wiki is a good sign. I'll link this official Timberborn wiki in the description if you would like to bookmark it. Now, I'd like to take a quick sec to acknowledge some comments on my previous Timberborn tips video. Not Botherable commented, build a single small wood storage. They're cheap and beavers can only pick up rubble if there's storage available for it, and you don't want to be stuck in a wood shortage loop, unable to pick up a ready supply of wood just because you don't have somewhere to put it, but also can't build that place to put it because you don't have wood. Yep. Spot on. Really solid tip to prevent something so small that can be such a big headache. Fabio Capella pointed out that the default setting on sluices is 5% or less contamination because that amount is harmless for the land and beavers. In an area that beavers won't be swimming, you could allow up to 50% contamination in the water through without causing the land around to become contaminated, and setting the limits higher allows for quicker flushing out of the contaminated water after the bad tide, leaving your beavers with healthy water sooner after a bad tide. I did a bit of testing with this, and it seems to be true. Leaving the sluice at 5% or less contamination didn't seem to harm my beavers meandering through the water, which I did check with a stream gauge, had between 1 to 2% contamination, but at the same time, my heart yearns to offer them nothing but perfectly clean water. Nevertheless, these are still points worth noting from you, and I appreciate the information. I'm sure folks who like to push various bits and bobs to their limits can use this more adeptly than I. Now, Famil Hagadir8561, I am so sorry to call you out, but they added to something I covered in that video, stating that wild trees will only spread their seeds on an empty fertile square, empty including that it can't have a stump left over on it. The wiki notes that dead plants without harvestable materials count as vacant, which made me unsure about how stumps are counted, so I just tested it. And behold, these stumps have been grown over with natural propagation. It's quite possible this is a change that has been made since you originally learned about removing stumps with a path, which is still a useful tidbit to know you can do, but there you have it. Trees can naturally spread to tiles that have stumps on them. Ukarab also commented with a tree tip, if space is tight, you can choose not to worry about your forester reaching the entire area you want to plant trees for their secondary resources like resin, chestnuts, syrup. They will plant what they can reach, then the rest of the area can populate naturally. This makes sense, and there's something pleasing about letting nature do its thing, which is maybe telling why I enjoy playing Folktales so much. Yukarab came in hot with a second comment too, noting the convenience of building swimming pools and or lidos in your hydration pools. By hydration pools, you mean the places you're collecting water for your beavers to drink, right? What a great thought, eh? Drinking your beaver buddies' bathing water. If that doesn't scream efficiency, well, thanks to the 4 of you for adding to the Timberborn tips list of doom. Quick shout out to ToadieZzz2M, whose tip was the need for more jokes about chasing beeve. But I like to think our beavers are more chill. You could say they just go with the flow. Did you know you can click on various plants and crops to see their status? I think my eyes must have completely glazed over this as I've been playing, but there's crystal clear information here showing if the plant has enough water, and if you hover over this eye circle on crops and trees, it'll show how long until they're fully grown, benefits they offer, and if they can be eaten raw. Speaking of missing basic functions of the game, I don't think I've ever noticed that if you click on a path tile, it highlights every building that's connected to that district and color codes how far away they are from the district center. It might be easy to miss that you can build the 2 and 3 tall platforms over top stairs, helpful for tight spots. Seeing injured beavers for the first time, or maybe more than usual, and wondering why? Beavers have a chance of getting injured when working at certain jobs. From least likely to suffer injury to the most: the lumber mill, gear workshop, paper mill, printing press, smelter, refinery, wood workshop, mine, bot assembler, bot part factory, and explosives factory. So if you've really ramped up explosives production in anticipation of a big old boom, you may want to have a few spare medical beds around, or even bots to do the work instead. Once you do advance to relying on bots, you'll want to make sure your biofuel supply is stable, along with power for your vital buildings, and you have plenty of batteries in case things slow down. I may have been a bit overzealous in the past with a complete teardown and rebuild of significant portions of my base, only to have my bots no longer able to do work for lack of biofuel, and my refinery at a standstill because of course I wanted to tidy up my windmills at the same time. By that point, you're likely also comfortable enough with the game to get into using priorities for buildings and jobs too. If you haven't yet, honestly, I say just experiment with what feels right, paying attention to the bits you change and how effective your changes have been. Just remember, if everything is prioritized, nothing is prioritized. Having all your new buildings set to maximum priority is the exact same as having them all set to the default priority, so use your various options accordingly. A good way to monitor the effectiveness of things like your hauler ratio and a general layout of your colony is to click this Manage Settlement button at the top left of your screen. There's a lot of information here. I like to look for the lower productivity buildings, fly over to them by clicking their icon on the left, and see if I can rearrange bits or add storage closer by to get things back up to snuff. Be sure to check out the other tabs on this menu, as well as the well-being button right next to this one to see how you can give your beavers the utopian lives they deserve. Beavers working as haulers from a hauling post have double the strength compared to beavers who just happen to be carrying resources from place A to B. This means they can carry double the amount of resources, marking haulers as a very valuable role to be filled. I've seen folks say that as their colony grows to be rather large, think 100 beavers or more, they aim to have at least a third of them assigned specifically to hauling. This makes sense to me, certainly at least as a starting point in figuring out your own preferred ratio. If you want to get into building those cool giant reservoirs you see on Reddit or YouTube but don't know where to start, here's a fairly simple design that works naturally with just playing the game. You'll likely already have a shallow reservoir you're using to irrigate your crops. Once your colony is established and you have some breathing room with resources and food, you can begin to build a taller reservoir beside your existing one, or beside a new one that you're building in a neat and tidy planned area. The point is to have the 2 reservoirs at these 2 heights, one short, 1 tall. Make the bottom block of this second reservoir sluices and set them to open below 0.6 water level downstream. Build the walls of this reservoir out of levees, and the top block I like to make dams so that you can build paths over them, which you can't with floodgates. It's vital that the sluices are at the same height as the water of your shallow reservoir, as they will detect when the water in that shallow reservoir gets too low, below 0.6 water level, and then open to let more water through. Then the dams on top allow for paths to be built on them and also allow for any water above their 0.65 height to spill over into the shallower reservoir and help prevent flooding. Ideally, you would have your setup that diverts bad water happen before this taller reservoir, only allowing clean water in it. And if your colony grows to pretty mega style, you can easily set up a third obnoxiously large reservoir behind the second one with the same process. Align its bottom sluices with the top of the water of the middle reservoir, set them to open below 0.6 water level downstream, build it up to max height, bada bing, bada boom, very silly amounts of water stored. From here, you can experiment plenty. I'm still far from an expert in water mechanics in this game, so I kind of fart around, building little breaker lines into my reservoirs to see if it helps with when waves start kicking back after a flood or drought, or you can try to work water mills into the design. This is just a nice, simple setup for you to get started. Gang, so often when I'm looking through tips for Timberborn, do I see people immediately suggesting to turn on developer mode, even to brand new players. And yes, 99 times speed is fun and even handy sometimes, and building essentially creative mode with instant build and instant demolish offers immediate gratification, but consider not. Listen, live your truth and all that, you're your own boss. But I just want to offer a gentle warning on how having these tools of instant gratification can diminish the experience of learning, experiencing, and eventually mastering a game like Timberborn. But hey, if you want access to developer mode, the keyboard shortcut is Alt-Shift-Z on the standard QWERTY layout. I do appreciate the message you're given if you use the kill option on one of your poor, helpless beaver bros. Another thank you to Mechanistry for sponsoring this video, and a quick shout out to my Patreon supporters for helping me keep the dream alive. Want more Timberborn tips? The video on screen has 60 more for you. Enjoy!